Today I'm just going to reflect on the Fight to Win Pro San Jose. It was their 23rd promotion, and I'm just going to do some reflection, thinking about submission only, the submission only game. The Fight to Win organization's a pretty interesting organization that travels nationwide. You know, they've had it's a submission only based tournament based with a time limit and a 3-judge decision if the match doesn't go into a decision. This was my second one doing the Fight to Win. First one was in San Francisco last year, in July, I think, July or August. This one was in San Jose, January, so just about 6 months between the two. You see a lot more submission-only tournaments coming up. So let's first take a look at just kind of the submission-only strategy or the concept, the mindset that you should have, or I think it's important to have going into a submission-only tournament. For me, and this is my ideas, but the way I see it is the point scoring, takedowns, sweeps, passes, they don't matter. And so there isn't that sense of urgency to fight those positions and fight for those positions, right? I'm not going to fight really that hard for a sweep or a pass or fight for a takedown. Really, it's a waste of energy. What you should be doing instead, or what I try and do instead, is to use my passing, my sweeps, my takedowns. I use those basic positions and attacks to set up submissions. So I'm setting up an attack based on their base attack for the submission instead of to gain and control a better position. And if it works in the favor of me getting a sweep or a takedown based on that, great. But really, my focus is to set up the submission. So I'm looking to finish a submission, you know, in very few steps as possible from those positions. And yeah, I might lead into a better position, but the primary attack that I'm looking for is the submission. So that's one strategy. I know some people just play a regular game that's based on their strengths, you know, that's revolved around passes and sweeps. But again, for me, I changed the game a little bit. Obviously, I'm playing my strengths because I think it's important to keep the game, keep the fight where your strengths lie. But rather than taking a step back and changing everything, I'm keeping everything the same, but just changing the focus, which is for the finish. You're still looking to gain your positions, obviously. You're not looking to lose your positions, or I'm not looking to lose my positions from the submission attempt, right? You know, like I wouldn't be giving up my back, but it's not a big deal for me to give up a sweep or to give up even a pass if I know that I can. I'd rather give up the pass, for example, and have the person take side control on me and gradually work my way back into an offensive attacking position, rather than really fight to prevent them from passing. And instead, you know, I might put them in a compromised submission, knowing that they need to defend it, because if they don't, they're gonna give up the submission. Now in the defense, they may give up a submission, or sorry, they may give up they may give up a pass, or they may give up a sweep. But again, like, I would rather give up the pass than give them the submission, right? Because there's only one way to end it all, and that's with the finish. So again, the focus is on setting up your submissions rather than setting up a dominant progression in points. A little bit different. Another thing that I think is important to understand, maybe this might change, is to maybe take a look at the history of submission only. So, you know, if you go back into old school Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which was interchangeable with Judo, right? Before, even after Kodokan, the Kodokan system was set up by Jigoro Kano, you can, if you really take a look at, what people would have called Kosen Judo, or what they currently call Nanatei. It's a loud car. What people would currently call Nanatei Judo, which currently exists in Japan. It's a submission only based system of Judo, and in that system, it's a submission only, but there's other criterias for submission, and I think it would be interesting to include this maybe in some of the major EBI rules, and maybe do it as a trial system. So there's a couple ways that you can win and get an ippon, right? So in English we only have the word submission, and when we think of that, we think of tapping, but in Japanese there was other criteria to get an ippon. And if you take a look at the current Judo rules, those rules still exist. So obviously getting somebody to tap, right, and with a joint lock or a choke is a form of a submission. But then getting into side control, right? Getting into what we would call side control or mount, and holding somebody there or just so basically passing the guard and holding somebody there for 20-30 seconds. I think it was, at the time it was 30 seconds. Current Judo rules is 20 seconds, but holding them in a pin for 20 seconds, that's considered a submission, or an ippon, in the Nanatei Judo rules, or the old school Kosen Judo rules, which is synonymous what we would think of as submission only Jiu-Jitsu. Another criteria for the submission was a throw from feet to back, right, and landing your opponent flat on their back, regardless of how the situation continued. And if you can show that you can control your opponent all from the feet and tape them all straight down and put them on their back, then that was proof that you were able to submit. I say that in quotes. You were able to submit your opponent. So I think it would be interesting to include maybe the pin, or maybe a throw that lands somebody on the back, or maybe a throw that you land. We can tweak the rules a little bit, where you land straight in side control and you hold them there for 10 seconds or something, as a criteria for submission, to add excitement to the positions, right? And I also think it helps educate the spectators, right? Well, why isn't there why are they fighting it out from the guard? Well, if he passes the guard, then he loses. Oh, I see. And the person on the guard, they have submission attempts, but I don't know. I think that would add some value to the positions as well, especially in the rules where somebody can just pull and play, kind of play a very passive game, letting them pass and then setting stuff up from there. It could add to the excitement of the submission only criteria. Interested to see what you guys know. But if you're interested in looking up some of the old school rules, if you go on YouTube and write Nanatei, Nanatei Judo, you'll see. And if you do Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or Gracie Jiu Jitsu, you'll see the similarity and the crossover. And this is something that existed way before our, what we would call Jiu-Jitsu or submission only rule set. So it's just kind of interesting to go back into the roots. Back to the Fight to Win Pro 23 in San Jose. I won my match, which is always great. I wasn't able to get a submission, but I was fighting for it. And that's kind of the so it came down to referee's decision. 3 judges raised their decision in favor of me, which was good. and I really had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the submission only atmosphere. It's a live crowd environment. This time it was at the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds, and they had a huge crowd show up. A lot of local San Jose people and a lot of people from Northern California, which was really cool. Let's see, anything else that was interesting from that night? Something I got to talk with my opponent. His name was Kyle Kingsbury, and we got to talk about our match a little bit, and something that he made a really interesting observation that I maybe I'm subconsciously aware of and sometimes conscious of, but not all the time, was he was talking about distance control, and he felt, you know, from his guard, he felt like if he tried to close the guard, I would have just been able to back out, and that I was doing a really good job using my body, my knees, my hands, maybe my head, to control the distance. And you know, he was either pulling me into a strong position of mine, or if he was like trying to push me away, then everything was getting reset to the point where it was just kind of a neutral position.